You're doing very well.
Right. Well, good afternoon. Welcome back, everybody. We're back into our open session for the afternoon, having had a really lovely, reflective and joyful lunch, sharing together some of our memories of for some people, the last 24 years. So as it's the close, and I'm going to say this publicly, and this is some of what I've said over our lunch, but I need to acknowledge this publicly, that we have to acknowledge the councillors who are stepping down after a very long period of service to our community. First of those is Bruce Thomas. 24 years is an incredibly long contribution, and which also included chairing the regulatory committee at a time. Bruce, you've always been that strong, practical bloke, that rural voice around the table with the huge smile, always reminding us to see the positives in things and keeping out both of our feet on the ground. You've got a passion for the land, the environment and local communities, and it's been really unwavering, and that those principles have guided your work. So after more than 2 decades, I think you can hang your boots up. You've earned a bit of a break from council papers. So thank you, Bruce, for your decades of service and for your always keeping the needs of the community at the heart of everything that you do. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Susan. It's been an absolute pleasure to be around this table working with you. And I have stated it publicly before, I couldn't work in a lot of other councils that I experienced. They're different people. We've got actually Waipao quantified a great area. The people that are employed here, the people I've worked with around this table, staff, everything's great. So I'm a happy person to just leave as it is now. And I will be keeping an interest because things aren't going to be easy for you all going forward. So thank you.
Cheers, Bruce. Thanks, Bruce. And Andrew Brown, 12 years of calm, sensible leadership. Don't look so scathingly at me, Andrew. You've been the consistent advocate for water services right from the beginning, the collaboration and reform. You'll always be the original water reformer in our eyes. Your accounting and business background has brought real rigour to our decision making. And as you guided, obviously, the Finance and Corporate Committee for a number of years with a very steady hand. I know you'll be looking forward to some more family time and obviously more travel, more golf and a bit more bike riding. So council will be for the poorer for your absence. And I want to thank you for your sound judgment and commitment to really solid strategic decision making and your thoughtful leadership. So thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks for those kind words, Susan. I've enjoyed my time and the input I've had here too, and the relationships with staff and other councillors, absolutely. Things have progressed in that 12 years. So it hasn't always been an easy time though. I mean, and neither should it be. That's what it's all about, a challenge and, stepping up and meeting them. Yeah, as to whether I'll be missed, I don't think so. It's time. A refresh is good. So I'm happy to leave, knowing that well, who knows what this elected member table is going to look like in a month's time. But the staff are a great bunch of people doing a great job. So keep it up, and I'll be happy. Thanks.
Kia ora, Andrew. Thank you. And finally, Liz, our Deputy Mayor. Councillor Liz Stolwick has served 12 years on council, including 2 terms as Deputy Mayor and also having chaired SPNP. Liz, you've always been a strong advocate for Cambridge, Waipa and indeed the entire Waikato region in your various roles. And I doubt that there's actually been a harder worker that sat around this table with us. Over the years, you've contributed across a very wide range of issues and supported many important decisions that have shaped our district. And on a personal level, I want to thank you for your support when I first became mayor. It was invaluable. Liz, we thank you for your long service, your commitment to representing Waipa and the experience that you've brought and shared with us at this council. So thank you.
Well, thanks, everybody. Does feel like an end of an era, doesn't it? There's three of us disappearing, but I probably want to acknowledge those who are restanding but may not end up around the table as well, which is, one of those awful things that you don't get a farewell in a way. But, everyone around this table has, deserves the accolades and certainly, huge thank you, I think, for all the work and certainly this last triennium, the challenges that has brought. For me personally, this has been such an incredible and rare experience for any person to have to serve your community. Love the fact that we actually got the pool finished. That was a big thing for the Cambridge councillors. The Ohopole Sport and Recreation Centre, as Claire mentioned over lunch, that for me was 4 years chairing that committee, and boy, am I bloody proud of that facility. You just couldn't now build something like that in the time and for the cost at the time too. But the CCTV cameras around the district, a lot of of the environmental commissioner hearings that I served on with a lot of people around this table, the APL building, the Kaipeki Quarry, dare I say it, the quarry, I did say it, didn't I? But also the Te Awa Lifestyle Village, that's an incredible, for me, when I go back there now, I'm really proud of, having that facility and seeing the great use that it is there for now. But anyway, look, just a big thank you to everyone. I really value the friendships that I've made along the way, and I look forward to catching up with you again.
Kia ora. So together, we've worked out that Bruce, Andrew and Liz have given 48 years of service to Waipa, and that's a huge legacy. On behalf of this council and our community, I want to thank you all three of you, for your commitment and your dedication, and we wish you all the very best for what comes next. Yeah. Okay, so let's crack back into the business, shall we? Still have our afternoon session to attend to, and the first matter to look into here after lunch is the commencement of the amendment to the LTP. We're looking at giving approval to commence work on this beast of a thing. So the floor is yours, Melissa, Diana and Kirsty.
Thank you. So yes, as Mayor Susan has said, the purpose of this report is to seek approval to commence the development of the amendment to the 25-34 long-term plan, as well as the annual plan for 26-27. So the recommendation to amend the long-term plan stems from the decision taken to move the delivery of water services to the CCO. The report provides the detail of all of this, but to summarise, recent changes to legislation has meant that council is not necessarily required to produce an LTP amendment. However, if we don't do this, this would trigger the need to consult on our annual plan. Given the matter that would trigger the need to consult, so that being the decision to move waters to a CCO has already been consulted on, staff do not believe that it makes sense to reconsult with the community on this. We did also signal to the community through the long-term plan consultation document that we would be looking to amend our LTP, so the approach presented through this report is consistent with the messaging previously communicated to our community. As the change in legislation was only introduced in the last fortnight, we are still understanding all of what's required around this, including the practicalities. So we are seeking independent legal advice on the practicalities of producing this long-term plan amendment. However, we have also received advice regarding that the approach presented through this report is the most logical way to proceed, and in doing so mitigates the risk of legal non-compliance. We would like to have had more detail fleshed out in terms of a work program before seeking this decision from you. However, with the upcoming elections, the first business meeting of the new council will not be until sort of end of November. which would be too late to start this process, noting we're required to develop an annual plan for 26-27 and progress the development of the 27-37 LTP. We would ideally be looking for council to adopt the amended long-term plan before the transfer agreement is signed, and we're expecting this to take place in February. This will then enable resourcing to refocus on the upcoming annual plan and LTP. I will hand over to Diana to step through some of the more legal aspects of this report before we move to questions, if that's okay.
Well, thank you, Melissa. So the legal aspects are reasonably complicated. They're a bit of a jigsaw puzzle because there's just been some recent legal changes to legislation. So I'll just try and step those through for you very briefly, just so you can get an understanding of the background to the report. So Section 97 of the Local Government Act says basically that you can't make a decision to transfer ownership or control of a strategic asset unless that's provided for in the long-term plan. So as you know, our current long-term plan doesn't provide for the transfer of water services. It was watered in. But just on 27th of August, a few weeks ago, that requirement was amended so that that obligation didn't apply to strategic waters assets. So that means technically we don't need to amend our long-term plan as a result of the waters decision. But despite that, we would still recommend that our long-term plan is amended to account for the waters decision. And that's for two main reasons. The first is that in our Local Waters Done Well consultation document, we signalled to the community that we would amend our long-term plan before the waters decision, the transfer takes effect. So amending our long-term plan is consistent with the expectations of the community. The other reason is that with the obligations for an annual plan, you have to consult on that unless there's no significant changes from the long-term plan. So that means if we don't amend our long-term plan, we would have to consult on our annual plan, and that would be basically replicating our Local Waters Done Well consultation. And so we don't think is very fair for the community because they've already been consulted on that, and essentially that decision's already been decided. So we think from a community perspective, amending our long-term plan will align with what we told the community, and it will also reduce the need for duplicate consultation. And we're suggesting that the long-term plan amendment is done as soon as possible because it's really a technical process just to take waters out. And we want to do that before the transfer agreement is actually signed, and also so that work stream doesn't get confused with the annual plan work stream, which is more complex in terms of just deciding rates and all those sort of details. So that's where the legal background for the recommendations in the report, which I hope makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. Roger.
Crikey, that's about all I can say. But we've talked about this before, and we know that we've got to do this long-term plan amendment. But just to get it straight in my mind, so the long-term plan amendment that we'll be doing will really be looking, because we're now in year one of a 9-year plan, but the amendment to that plan will be to look at years 2 to 9 of that long-term plan and take out the waters costs, the staffing costs, the whatever organizational costs there are, but also to take out all of our assets and our loans that we have that are water related. Sorry, go and answer that first.
Yeah, so basically we'll be looking to do whatever we need to give effect to the waters decision. And that's what we're going to be seeking specific advice from, like what exactly does that amendment look like? Will it be just a matter of saying we no longer supply water services, that type of thing? Or will it be more, we will get more detailed advice on exactly what the amendment looks like, but the effect will be from years 2 to 9 that water services aren't provided.
We still don't know yet how much we're going to have to play around with that 2 to 9 years in terms of manipulating assets, liabilities, revenues and expenses.
That's correct. So we're going to get specialist legal advice on that point to make sure it's,
Okay,
we're complying with our obligations with that.
okay. And in terms of this requirement for consultation, if those changes, whatever they are, result in some variation to the projected rate strike that we've placed in that LTP, will it be possible that the rates can be changed as a result of the changes we make? It's possible?
We will be seeking advice exactly on those
as well as-
details.
Okay, sorry, I was just trying to get my own mind right as to what kind of changes are likely to come through. Yeah,
Through the chair, I think what this is highlighting is the incredible complexity of the situation that we're dealing with. We haven't had this situation occur previously. There are significant time constraints. You've heard from the team, the legislation is changing. This legislative amendment was made only a matter of weeks ago. And so we are responding as quickly as we can to ensure that we are providing you with accurate information to inform decision-making. The key point, we could have delayed coming to you. And, we might have said that would have been appropriate to wait the outcome of that legal advice, but unfortunately, time is not on our side. We're already working within a constrained time frame. The election adds an added pressure. And then, of course, we don't have meetings over that Christmas New Year period either. So we're trying to be effective and efficient in bringing this to you today and acknowledging there will be further reporting to the new council.
the other question that goes with that is, will we be doing this long-term plan review and looking at the annual plan concurrently or subsequently?
So in terms we want to keep the two work streams separate because one is to achieve one objective, which is to take waters out, and the other is, like a normal annual plan. So we're trying to complete the long-term plan amendment exercise as quickly as possible, so then we can then focus on what needs to be done.
Subsequently.
Yeah, afterwards.
This feels like when you're hiking and you come over the brow of the hill that you think is the only hill you've got, and you just get there and you see there are all these other big hills into the distance, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah. Andrew.
Yeah, this long-term plan is certainly the gift that keeps on giving. But clearly it's got to be done. And I guess theoretically, James might be able to enlighten us, but theoretically, Waters would come out and because Waters is its own separate thing, the rates projected increase in years 2 to 9 wouldn't change, but I know stuff happens as you go along, so it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, it's got to happen, and I think it's got to be mean to long-term plan, then annual plan. Nothing else makes any real sense. So yeah, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Going to be busy.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Any other questions before I look for a seconder? Monty.
Just one from me, and it's only sort of related. It's to do with the debrief from the current LTP. We've all completed interviews on that. What's your plan with getting back to us on that? Because that'll be informing this work going forward, right?
Yeah, so the interviews were obviously completed by an external facilitator. I have not yet received any word from her. She'll be producing a report that will then be folded in with feedback from all of the other debrief sessions that we've had with the likes of the PSG, the executive team, so on and so forth. Then that will inform the project closeout report and the improvement opportunity for the 27 LTP.
So we'd expect that sometime in a few months' time, maybe before the next LTP round kicks off?
Yeah, so we're looking to present a more detailed work program for the long-term plan in December. So through that, I would imagine that we'd be looking to highlight some of the improvement opportunities that would be focusing on for the 27 LTP.
Hey, I just one follow on from that. I'm slightly loath to do this because one of the things that struck me when I was talking to Anne, this the project governance group that you're suggesting just carrying on, I had quite a strong view that it was a bit tough just having the mayor as the only elected member in there. It's a big load for one person to be able to represent the views. You know, when you're sitting there, you're trying to think, what would the table think? What am I needing to sort of say? What am I needing to think about? And I expressed a view to Anne that I reckon there needs to be 2 elected members to try and cover off that you're accurately sort of representing us as a group. So I don't want to preempt the review, but I notice you are talking about the same governance arrangements for the LTP amendment and the annual plan, and it's just a suggestion to maybe consider that 2 EMs might help.
Through the chair, as Melissa mentioned, we will be bringing more detailed work programs to the new council prior to the end of the calendar year. So, so the work that's been undertaken through debriefs will inform those work programs. So we'll be able to see collective member input and obviously, decision making at that point.
Excellent. Good stuff. Any other questions before I look for a seconder, which Andrew has moved? Dale-Marie will second the motion in terms of the recommendations that appear on page 215 that we receive the report and approve commencement of the work. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And so the hamster wheel continues.
Thanks, team.
Thanks, Melissa. And the next cab off the rank is a piece by Kevin. Hello, nice to see you, Kevin. Establishment of the Waikato Water Done Well. It's really more the transition plan. Yeah, I've always found the title of this one not quite on the money, but we get there. Okay. Hello, Kevin. Hello, George. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors. We'd like to take the report as read, and the report asks that you approve the attached transition plan for Waipawa District Council. Before we get into discussion and questions, George and I have a few points that we'd like to go through on these slides, just to bring out the highlights of what's in the plan and provide a little more context around why the plan looks like it does. The purpose of the plan is to outline the high-level strategy, objectives and approach that the council will take to efficiently and effectively transfer the Waipawa District Council to Water Services business, including staff, assets, liabilities, financial, contractual, legal and other essential information and data to Waikato Waters Limited to enable the CCO to commence operations on the 1st of July 2026, which you'll hear them referring to as day one. The plan is necessarily high level at this time, and I'll explain why in the next few comments. Waikato Water have adopted a high level establishment plan and formed an establishment team to stand the organisation up. They are currently developing the detailed programs for each work stream in that team, including objectives, deliverables, milestones, and metrics that will let you know how they're going as the owners. Once those things are developed, we will be able to develop our detailed program of work, which aligns with their detailed program of work. So at this stage, the plan that you have in front of you is very high level. And there are a number of reasons for this. Not least, we are still in the very early days of the establishment of Waikato Water Limited. You just heard that the the legislation that gives effect to it, the Local Government Water Services Act 2025, is only a couple of weeks old and went through quite significant change in material areas, not least around the LTP, during the Committee of the Whole immediately before third reading when it became enacted. And some of those changes were a surprise and have required councils across the country to rethink their approach a little bit. The Water Services Delivery Plan, which provides our baseline document for what that entity is going to do over the next 10 years, was only approved by DIA a week ago. The establishment team is still forming, and the Waikato Waters Limited Chief Executive will not be appointed until late October, early November. So we're very much at a nascent stage. And similarly, we are here too. We are still forming our transition team and understanding exactly what it will be required to do and therefore what it should look like. However, we have the first key components of the new entity in place. We have a shareholders agreement. We have a constitution. The shareholders representative forum has been constituted and has met, and the board has been appointed and has had its first meeting. We have a set of agreed strategic objectives for standing up the new entity, and we're proposing strategic objectives from a Waipower perspective in this document. We have a change management framework that has been agreed across the 7 councils and the entity that will guide the establishment. And establishment work streams have been stood up and have commenced the discovery phase of their detailed planning. And we've already received around 50 requests for information across a wide range of areas from the new establishment team. So our transition plan will be built out and completed as Waikato Waters finish their detailed planning. We need to proceed in lockstep, both with Waikato Waters and with our counterpart partner councils across the region. And if you'll recall, when we had a briefing a few weeks ago, we talked about this idea of a bridge as the organising metaphor, and George will remind you a bit more of it later on. But we need to be well organised and consistent in our approach across all 6 councils, but particularly the 3 that are going in tranche 1, to make sure that the transition happens as effectively as possible. We have an awful lot to do in a very short time. It's only 9 months until we have to have this entity up and running, but we are making good progress. It can feel like we're not sometimes, that the detail is not yet there, but the building blocks are in place. However, this is not a simple process. This is the most complex water CCO that is being established in New Zealand in this tranche of reforms. And unfortunately for us, it's not a simple lift and shift process as was envisaged under Three Waters. It's quite different. We have a different number of councils involved, a different sequence for establishment, very different legislative settings, and the actual organisational form of the new CCO is very different to what was proposed under Three Waters. And so unfortunately, much of the work that was done for Three Waters, for Entity B, the Waikato entity, is no longer particularly useful. Both because there is this different construct, but also because the information that Entity B was based on is now 4 years old and in some cases has aged rapidly. But where it is useful, for example, in the asset space, because the big assets are reasonably consistent, it is being used. And the establishment entity has reached back into the database held by DIA wherever it was appropriate. Next slide. I mentioned in that little introductory, but that we have determined some strategic objectives. They're outlined on page 7 of the plan, and they build on the strategic objectives for standing up the entity and add in objectives that are important for us as a council to ensure that the transfer is effective and that we maintain our people-centric approach. I'll now pass over to George to talk more about the delivery approach and how we're considering governance and reporting.
Cool, thanks, Kevin. So there's just sort of 4 or 5 more slides. It's a big document. So we did want to pull out just some of these things that we want you to be really aware of. So this is one of them around the delivery approach. Now, Kevin did talk about this previously when he came and had a discussion with you. And there's 2 key concepts that all councils have agreed for us to base our delivery on. And that ensures that we're doing it collaboratively, we're doing it in a sequenced and really aligned approach. So the first one is the bridge that we've talked about. So that's the concept of us getting from one side to the other, as you like, and both sides are equally as important. So the Waikato water establishment is as equally important as us being ready to support the transition across that bridge, and that we retain the delivery of services within council. So that's sort of where that bridge construct is coming from, and you'll hear it a lot, I think, over the next sort of year as we talk about both sides getting ready for day one. The second part, and I know Kevin's also touched on this previously, all councils are fundamentally taking a change management approach. This isn't a technical transition. This is a transition based on people. And it's people-centric, and it's about ensuring that we carry on delivering well for our community while we do that. So there's a change management framework at multiple levels, so at a strategic level, very much at that wider council level, at a leadership and culture level, and as individuals, how we support our people in this transition that may be affected by it. And I think Steph talked a little bit earlier in the day potentially about a number of councils got together last week in terms of the senior leadership team, and we had quite a discussion about these 2 aspects and to ensure that we're all on the same page. The next bit just to pull out is just wanted to touch on governance. So as Kevin talked about, this is a high-level plan at this stage while things are being clarified and the program built by Waikato Waters, which will allow us to respond in more detail. But in terms of the high-level governance, what we're really trying to achieve here is for you to be able to maintain oversight and control, and for us as senior staff to support that process as well. And you'll see a roles and responsibilities table outlined on page 31 of the plan, which will give you a lot more detail about the roles and responsibilities of each. The governance structure that we're proposing is so that we can ensure that the right decisions come to you at the right time, and you can make those decisions, but also so that we can be as agile as possible as well. This is going to be very fast-paced over a very short space of time. As Kevin said, the transition team is being formed, and that will reflect back from what the Waikato Waters establishment plan looks like, so we're all aligned. We're taking a work stream approach. And the other thing probably to call out with that governance structure and workstream approach, you've seen from the previous paper with the LTP and the AP, there's lots of interdependencies there in terms of decision making and what will need to happen over the next few months. So the 2 programs are going to be working really alongside each other to make sure that we're doing the right things at the right times. Couple of other bits of interest. We are commissioning independent assurance through our internal auditors so that we can provide assurance to you and to the Audit and Risk Committee that we're managing this program effectively, and they in an agile way it can support us to make improvements in terms of how we're managing that program. We will put together a more detailed reporting framework. Initially, that consists of regular internal conversations with the PDG and ELT, frequent updates to you as council and coming to you when those key decisions are required to be made. We will look at other alternative communication channels with you. For example, on the radar might be an opportunity as well, and our quarterly reporting through to risk and assurance. So we'll be building up that reporting framework in the short term to make sure that we're communicating as we should. And then the other thing I did just want to touch on before Kevin carries on is benefits framework. So it's really important. And again, we'll be bringing in our internal auditors to help us make sure that we've got that established from the beginning. It's aligned with Waikato Waters, and that we have a monitoring system in place over the next sort of 3 to 5 years. So they're the key things I wanted to highlight. Yeah, cool.
Thanks, George. just a couple more slides to go. There are a number of services that the council will retain in-house, both as transitional activities whilst Waikato Waters gets fully stood up. It won't be the complete answer on July the 1st next year, but also some things that have a more enduringly, are better delivered from the council on an enduring basis. This will evolve over time, and the details are still being worked through and exactly what this will look like, and will actually be codified. The services delivered by councils will be codified in schedules to the transfer agreement. So the things that are going to stay in-house from day one are water billing, customer receipting, development contribution, revenue collection, and debt management, though over the time they will move to the entity. Waikato Civil Defence Emergency Management, in the event of an emergency or civil defence event, stays in-house. Agreement for provision of services to Waikato Water Limited, enabling developments and new connections, will stay in-house. Customer call centre, front counter, and other customer contact channels will stay with the council, at least initially. And appropriate and ongoing engagement with co-governance committees, for example, the JMA committees, including continuing to hold the primary relationship with mana whenua and iwi across our district. And the last thing I want to cover very quickly is the budget that's included in the plan. To meet the objectives of the transition, we can't deliver this out of business as usual funding. This is a significant program of work for the council with high complexity, many interdependencies, and significant ongoing implications for the council. We need to ensure it's adequately resourced to protect staff wellbeing and ensure that council services are not compromised during the transition period. The budget that's proposed in the plan is within the amount that was approved in the last LTP. It's based on current known costs for the transition team, resources that have already been appointed, and includes forecast costs for the resources that are yet to be procured. The budget will continue to be refined as the transition progresses and requirements become more certain. The transition team is comprised of a mix of seconded council staff, backfilled where necessary, staff engaged on fixed-term contracts for the transition period, and some external contractors. This approach is deliberate as it maintains a suitable balance between local knowledge and experience and external expertise, and it does help keep costs down. The approved budget from the LTP is $3.5 million, with $3 million in 2025-26 and $500,000 in 2026-27. And it is intended that this will be recovered from Waikato Water Limited through the debt to be transferred to Waikato Waters from 1st of July. Chief executives are currently working through the formula for exactly what costs will be recovered from the CCO. And you'll recall that we discussed this in the workshop last month. There's a fair bit of work to do to land that. It needs to be consistent, transparent, and robust, and be acceptable to the board of Waikato Waters as well. That closes our highlighting of the key points from the plan, and we are more than happy to take questions.
Thanks, Kevin. I have questions from Mike and Roger.
Thank you, through the Mayor. The first is a clarification, and Steph or Kevin or George might be able to answer this. The 2.9 million, so I understand all that. And I'm just going to say the money that we just got, the 850k-ish, towards this, is that going to subsidise that 2.9 million, or is it, how does it fit into the 2.9 million? The money that we just, or is it totally separate?
So I could talk to that, yeah.
Yeah.
So that money was decided that it would be collectivised in Waikato Waters Limited, the establishment group
Right,
itself.
gotcha.
Rather
Right.
than divvied per council.
Yep.
That's where it would have most impact. So
Right.
it's subsidising the cost, the establishment cost at that end of the bridge.
Right, thanks for that, Steph. Thanks for that.
Conceptually, it would be netted off their debt.
Yeah, right, I understand that. And just going through the time frame, and I've just put here the journey towards the July the 1st for setting up the new CCO. is rightly nice and visual, and it's reasonably high level, and it's very obvious, you know, but it's very ambitious, which it needs to be. Like I'm just going through, including January, like, oh, you know, like obviously people are going to be working right through this, but the timeframes I think, yeah, are calculated, but they sort of have to be achieved. So I don't envy the horsepower that's going to be behind this, because if anyone looks at this, it is a lot of work to do. And what do you say, 9 months? So, yeah, and now I think I had a question. I'll put page 261. What do I put that for? Oh, yeah, the people resource. So to do this, do we have, like you mentioned about the people resource, do we need to are we bringing more people into for this transition? Is that what I'm hearing in terms of on contract or whatever to help make this to achieve July 1st?
Yeah, we have a transition team of around 12 FTEs up to about 15 staff. It will become they aren't all on board yet.
Yep.
We have a core team in place now that is a mixture of secondees like George, contractors like myself. Our program coordinator, team assistant is a fixed term staff member for the duration of the program, and there are a few more to come. We think we're going to need a bit more capability, but we don't know exactly what that looks like yet, and it will become clear as things evolve. We've catered for it in the budget, and to be honest, we've kind of worst cased it. Yeah. So we've counted them at 1 FTE from October, just to be safe, to be prudent. Do I think it's going to require more than 15 staff across the period? I don't think so. We have the luxury of being able to reach back into the organisation and access the expertise that's resident inside the organisation. So you'll see, actually, if you look at the budget, it looks skewed towards program management, because that's where the additional capability needs to be. The actual work streams consist often of a lead who coordinates the activity, maybe one person working to them, but they have the ability to reach into the organisation. And you'll see that all the workstream leads on the whole tend to be managers or GMs in the council doing that role part-time in conjunction with their day job, because that's where the expertise and leadership in the organisation lies.
Sure. Thank you for that.
Roger.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, again, another complicated situation, isn't it? And I've got two questions. One is going back to the list of services that remain within Waipa District Council. And I'm not sure, but I think we alluded to these the other day. Will they be on a contract for service basis?
So, thanks, Councillor. In the schedules to the transfer agreement, there will be service agreements landed for the services that stay with the council, and similarly for the services that the entity will provide to the council.
And then each of those will lay out the commercial arrangements by which we're contracting. Either we're going to contract to them or they'll contract to us, Roger.
But there will be an exchange there.
Yes, there'll be a commercial agreement about what that looks like. Yep. What that looks like is not developed yet. Can I just check, because it's a great question, are people familiar? There's so much going on, right? This is one of the issues we're dealing with. The transfer agreement that's signed at the end of February is required for all 3 councils who are moving by 1 July, because we need to know exactly, they need to know by the end, very latest, what is transferring over to the CCO, whether it's assets, people. So that is going to be a lot of summer work to get that transfer agreement in detail. So just checking that you're familiar with that language.
My next question is going back to the staff transition bridge. And that's the one, not the one that you had, but the one that's in
the plan, yes.
Yeah, on page 264, where we've got council objectives, shared objectives, and Waikato Waters Limited objectives. And one of the council objectives is minimise redundancy costs. Can I ask, within your role and within the role of the transition group, is the consideration of stranded assets and stranded staff going to be considered by the transition group, or is it internal to our organisation that will come to us as a separate consideration? Because I'm worried
that
about
yeah,
the
yeah.
stranded staff situation.
Yeah, absolutely. The organisation of how staff will transfer over and what that looks like is only just emerging, Roger. So it's very early days, but it will, which is why the bridge is really important, because both the CCO, the CE of the CCO and the CEOs of council need to understand who is going to transfer over and when, and what does that look like? Because the the HR provisions under the waters legislation are quite different from employment-based legislation, and there's precedent in court. So we're still mapping that out. We want to obviously look after people as best as we can across that bridge, and we are still to determine what stranded overheads looks like for council, but also what does that mean for people and their jobs and their terms and conditions. So early days, we're trying to do that as collaboratively and in the spirit of looking after people in the best possible way for both sides of the bridge. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, my main concern, of course, is the stranded staff.
Sure.
The staff that are not required in Waipa District Council going forward, but neither are transitioning over to the waters, of which there will be, unfortunately, some from each of the member local authorities.
That's right. And so we are trying to plan that out as best as we can. It's still very uncertain. We're also very conscious that the staff are living with that uncertainty. So we had some significant conversations with all of our staff yesterday. Some will have certainty earlier, and some will be living with some uncertainty for some time to come. And we need to wrap a lot of support around them and make sure that they're valued and still able to give their best while they're here, and while we work through the different stages of developing the staff transition and get some more clarity on that. A really critical date for that is when we have the organisational structure from the CCO, and that's due in November. I might say just openly, it probably would have been great to have had that earlier, but that's just, again, a consequence of legislation only just being defined, et cetera, So it will be a really important milestone when we get that. We understand the operating model, the proposed operating model, and the proposed operating structure. That's going to be really pivotal.
And I guess I just wanted to add to that, that's why that people are at the base of this. This is about people, and that's why we need to take this really strong change management approach.
And sensitively too. Claire.
Yeah, thanks very much. Really good to see the plan, and I'm pretty happy with the detail. I would have liked to have seen that slide that you had in there of the things that are actually going to stay in-house in the immediate term. Yeah, because I think that provides a lot more clarity for people. And when you're thinking about continuity for people's employment, if stuff is likely to stay in-house, it's likely those people that are doing those roles are actually going to carry on doing those roles in-house for the time being. Obviously, there'll be some resizing, I guess, later on, but having that sort of explicitly in the transition plan, I think would give some kind of assurance. Yeah, I do share your comments or your, well, I don't know what the right word is. I'd have loved to see more detail earlier. Can't believe that they're waiting for a CEO to be appointed in October before they get to doing some of this planning. I think they could have started that a lot earlier, actually. And
they are doing that early. They're doing that as we speak. But they too had to wait. They were too waiting on legislation and various other things to form. So they're not waiting for the CE to be appointed to developing that. The establishment team is currently working on that, Claire.
It's great because that's just so pivotal to a lot of stuff. Like what I would have liked to have seen in here, it's no criticism of you, Kevin, but there should have been more two-way flow by what the Waikato Water people are going to be doing and how we can actually work together. Like it just seemed to be so much stuff that you were sort of doing it from this side of the bridge without anything coming from the other side of the bridge yet. But there'll be a lot of stuff where there will be to and fro, and you'll see how you can fit together and hopefully create some synergies. Yeah, and I'm just quite impatient, yeah, to see that, I suppose, playing out. And then, of course, yeah, I have talked about this before, where I'm thinking about what's left for council, and sort of a bit like what Roger's talked about to do with stranding things. But of course, there's a flip side to that, because there'll be new entities that are looking for homes, and new entities that may also be looking for collaborative opportunities to share costs and things like that. So it's not necessarily going to mean a direct downsizing. It actually could mean that we'll have more opportunities that might need quick pivots and things like that. Yeah, because I am hoping that there'll be opportunities to share systems, share technologies, or even share spaces. Yeah, but of course that's a little bit early. So I'm just trying to rein in my impatience, but commend you for the work you've done, and looking forward to having some updates. Thanks.
I'll just make a quick comment on one of the points you made. We too are very aware of the need to work effectively with the establishment team, and that's why we've deliberately used the same approach that they have to our planning, and have mirrored our transition team with the establishment team. And you'll see a table in the plan that shows, it maps our team to theirs. And we have very close relationships at the team level, at my level with my fellow transition directors and managers into the leadership of the establishment team, at the chief executive level, and then clearly at the ownership and board level as well.
Just you prompted something there. So that was on page 33 of your report, or page 261 of our agenda. Yeah, I did have a look at that. And I was thinking that on the WWL side, under the financing, funding and commercial, there's nothing there about contracts. Because one of the things I noticed in the slide you had with what's staying in-house, it didn't mention about meter reading, which I presume we'll carry on with that contract. But, you know, those kind of contracts, which, you know, we've got to sort of be covering that off from Waikato Water Done Well point of view as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's included in the dash point for procurement.
Oh, okay, right.
That's procurement and contracts.
Oh,
and we have our extraordinarily able procurement advisor working on it as well from our end.
Yeah, and then on that same page under operations, but on our side, something I'm concerned about is how customer interactions are planned for. I see it as on Waikato Water's Done Well side, but and I do notice that is going to be staying in-house. It's just I'm aware of Wellington Water's experience with the customer requests. It ended up being a sad story. I don't want to see that happen again, I guess. So I'm just keen to make sure that we are having really good channels to ensure that those customer requests and prompt, I suppose, response to things needing to be fixed is definitely going to be something that we can still deliver on to a really high standard.
Yeah.
And sorry, Kevin, what we've done, Councillor St Pierre, is for that specific reason actually pulled that more overtly out than what is in the Waikato Water in terms of around communication and customer experience. And we will be having an expert involved in that because it is so important.
And even though Waikato Waters didn't call it out in their establishment plan, which is 6 weeks old now, so it's getting aged, they've clocked this as well now, and they have just employed an ex-customer services leader out of Watercare to be their customer lead, and he is very active in his discovery phase already.
Any other questions in respect of the plan?
Thank you very much. It's an interesting and, as I say, very complex situation. I'll steal from what I'm pretty interested in civil defence. And in the transition, we will need to know at what levels we're dealing and who we're dealing with at those points in time. Simply because we can't set when there's an emergency, it just happens. So we've got to have the ability, whether we're dealing with territorial authority or we're dealing with a CCO, who's responsible for what, where, how and why.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's one of those lifeline things that gets critical, so you have to have it sorted in advance, and we're going to keep a very close eye on it. It does give me some reassurance that we are keeping it in-house initially, rather than handing it over holus bolus. But there is an interaction there that needs to be well defined ahead of 1 July.
So would you deal with the regional authority at that level so that we do have some contact or knowledge at all times of how your progression is moving? Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Monty?
I imagine you're coming up against time. Hey, George, you referred to decisions being brought up to council at the appropriate time. What decisions are you anticipating going forward?
I think that will evolve over time as well, but things that come off the top of my head is stormwater arrangements, transfer agreements, the big rocks like that, and it will emerge.
Okay, cool. So you'd be expecting us to formally approve the transfer agreement?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the arrangements for stormwater, which we're hoping to have by the end of the year.
Wildly complex, isn't it? Wildly complex and ever changing. Andrew?
Yeah, so I just would like to say I'm delighted to see this happening, and even more delighted that I'm going to have nothing to do with the detail. And that's why we employ you guys, and excellent, get on with it.
Andrew, can I invite you then to move the recommendation as the original water reformer?
It's worth a little clap.
Yeah. Look, before I seek a seconder, any other questions of these people in respect of this transition plan? Appreciating its high level, but man, there's a lot of work to do and there's already a lot being done. So well done. No, well, I'm comfortable seconding that. So I will put the motion that we approve the transition plan. I note that it says subject to any changes, but we haven't agreed to any changes at the meeting. So it is as is. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.
Mayor Susan, can I please just say thank you to the team? There's a lot coming through this agenda today. The previous paper that Kirsty and her team put up, but this paper particularly at speed. I want to thank the team for this one. There's a number of people involved. Kevin lost his mum last week, just as this was coming together, and had a particularly rough week. So to get it into this shape in such a short amount of time and get it here, I'm just delighted, and I want to thank the team very much, George, Kevin, Lisa, and all the people in behind you as well. Thank you very much. Oh, Evie, Lisa. Sorry, you're sitting quietly. James in the back there. Sorry, it really is a team effort. So thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Right. Moving on to our next item, which is Ngāpai Whenua Te Tiriti Scenic Reserve Land Transfer. Now, this one's been taken over, I think, for at least, must be coming up 9 years. So I'd be pleased to see this one finalised. Brad and Sally, nice to see you both.
Kia ora tātou, and thank you for having us both here today. This report is to progress the aspiration of Ngāti Koroki Kohakura to transfer ownership of Te Reti Reserve, which is owned by them to Parawera Marae. For context, Te Reti is a 27.9 hectare reserve, 11 kilometres from Parawera Marae on the southern slopes of Mangatautari. So my apologies that we didn't provide a map within the report, and we've just handed out that information for you to see today. The reserve was previously owned by the Department of Conservation and returned through the Ngāti Koroki Kohakura Claims Settlement Act in 2014. Through this settlement, Council became a partner in a joint management body known as Ngāpai Whenua, and you have members of that joint management body around the table today. Ngāpai Whenua looks after the management of 4 reserves, including Te Reti. The Act provides for the transfer of land and sets out clear steps to do so. Part of this process requires written consent from Council as a partner of Ngāpai Whenua. There is no financial implications for council with this decision. We have never held any budget for this site and we do not undertake any maintenance at the reserve, as it is owned by Ngāti Koroki and administered by Ngā Pai Whenua. Both Ngāti Koroki Kohukura and Parawera Marae are very eager to progress the transfer of their land, and as good iwi partners, we are seeking your support to achieve this today. Both Brad and I are here to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Sally. Great summary. It's been going on for a while. Any questions of either Sally or Brad in respect of this? Liz?
Look, I was one of the original Ngā Pai Whenua members and probably are as well. And look, when Ngā Pai Whenua was formed, we visited all of the reserves that were gifted back, and Te Reti was one of them. In fact, at one of the very early Ngā Pai Whenua meetings, the desire for Parawera Marae to connect again with this particular reserve was something that they felt very strongly about. So I am just really pleased to see this on our agenda. It's been kicking around a while, and I appreciate essentially what needs to happen is that there's so many different parties involved, but government and obviously this council, and it's just taken a wee bit of time, but that's absolutely fine because today's going to be quite a momentous day, I think, for Parawera Marae. So yeah, 100% support it, and I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. I think it's 9 years. I think you and I are probably the only originals that are on it now. So yeah, it's been a while.
I'd like to speak to it as well. Living in the area, I do know the actual value of that land, and particularly to the local people, they do identify quite a lot with the mountain and that side. So I will second the motion if I can, please.
Thank you, Lou. Any further discussion or questions in respect to the paper? I have a mover and a seconder. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Fantastic. That's great stuff. That's a great achievement. Well done.
And just on behalf of Community Services, thank you, councillors and the Mayor, for your support over the last triennium. All the best to those that are standing for re-election again, but thanks to those that aren't as well. Yeah, I've always really valued the discussion, the questions that you all provide, and the guidance. So yeah, I'm new.
Thanks, Brad. Right. Next item is a Reserves Act matter, which will be very familiar to us all because it was dealt with an F&C, but we have Angela here. Nice to see you, Angela. The floor is yours.
And you, thank you. I'll keep this short and sweet. I'm sure that you are all over a very, very, very long day. I'm happy to take this report as read and answer any questions.
Any questions?
No questions.
From anyone?
We've already discussed this.
Yeah, we've heard it at F&C.
I'd just be pleased to move.
You will move it
second
for, and you, so Roger will move it and Lou will second it. There being no further questions, I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Nice. Thank you so much. Thank you. For
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for your work on that one.
That was record time.
And our final item on our agenda for this triennium and council is a council delegations and continuation of district licensing committee item. Diana, welcome back.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'll take this report as read, but I will just highlight the key elements. So as stated, the purpose of this report is to seek additional council delegations and also for council to agree not to discharge the district licensing committee. The report seeks a number of delegations. The first is to ensure that the Chief Executive has appropriate delegations during the interim election period. So as you know, from the point that the election result is declared until members are sworn in, they cannot act in their capacity as members. So we're seeking a delegation to cover that period, but also up to the second meeting of council, because as you may recall, the first meeting of council is usually ceremonial sort of formalities. And so we want to ensure that substantive items don't need to be considered at that point. So we're seeking authority for delegation until the second meeting of council. We're also seeking delegations relating to financial contributions. As you may recall, in August, Council adopted practice notes relating to the application of financial contributions, which will come into effect once Plan Change 26 comes into effect. And we're seeking delegations for senior staff to be able to exercise relevant decision-making capacity in relation to financial delegations. Moving on, the Resource Management Consenting and Other System Changes Amendment Act recently came into force. So the report is also seeking delegations to senior staff to exercise functions under that Act. The report highlights what that Act, the Amendment Act actually achieves, but this will ensure staff can exercise those functions. Another change we're seeking is to delegate to senior staff some residual functions of the Natural and Built Environment Act. And there are some fast track applications that are still being considered under that Act. So we're just seeking appropriate delegations to ensure staff can exercise relevant functions under that particular Act that's still into play. And finally, as you may know, at the end of each triennium, all council committees are discharged unless council resolves for them not to be. Our recommendation is that the District Licensing Committee remains in force, but given its regulatory role under the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act. So that's a very quick run through of what the report requires. I'm very happy to take any questions.
We've got to keep the alcohol flowing, don't we? Roger, do you have a question?
All of these delegations that you're seeking, and I don't have a problem with any of them, but they are for a specific period of time.
No, so to clarify, the interim election period is just till the second meeting of council. The other delegations are to staff to always apply. So that's what we usually do for the Resource Management Act functions, is that they're always in play.
Andrew?
Second.
Okay, I have Bruce moving it. Yeah. And Andrew seconding it, which has quite a nice symmetry to it, given it's the last item on the agenda. The last day the two of you will be in this house. So I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Well done. Thank you, Diana. Very concise report. So people, that brings us, hey, look, my timesheet says meeting end at 3:35 and it's 3:35. So we actually did really well there. Well done. Well done, everyone. Hey, yeah, look, it's been a great privilege to sit here with you all, and for the last 3 years, I want to say I've enjoyed every minute of it, but that wouldn't quite be right. I've enjoyed most of it, more of it than not. So look, yeah, we're blessed to live here and we're blessed to have each other. So I will just close that and ask Dalmarie to close us appropriately. Thank you.
Tēnā tātou i te hui, ai, te toko toro tapu, Liz, Bruce, Andrew, e mihi ana ki a koutou. E mihi ana ki a koutou, o ngā hua, o ngā kaimahi i tēnei rangi. Tūtawa mai i runga, tūtawa mai i raro, tūtawa mai i roto, tūtawa mai i waho. Kia tau ai te Māori tū, Māori ora, ki te katoa haumi e hui e, kia tau te Māori. Tēnā koutou.
Thank you.
Everybody. Well done.
Now, that workshop, we're just going to finish. Do you want to ask you to?